Welcome to that loving voice. Welcome to that loving voice. Hi everyone, welcome back to That Loving Voice. As you know, my name is Tegan. I'm the founder and your host today. Today we're going to be doing a TLV yoga variation series, working on the hip flexors and the QL a little bit. So if you're not familiar with the hip flexors, primarily they're composed of the Psoas, which kind of loops up and around and through, hooking on the greater trochanter up and through the pelvis, attaching at the lumbar spine basically and the T12. And similarly, the QL attaches there as well, these lumbar vertebra, and attaches on the butterfly of the pelvis. So hip flexors, obviously responsible for flexing the leg, and the QL responsible for some lateral flexion, etc. So here we go. Today, what we'll need for our practice is one strap, 2 blocks, and you may want a little blanket or a towel or something just for your knees to be made comfortable a little bit here and there. And you may want that for your head at the end for your soaking pose. I'm really looking forward to this. All right, so let's start by stretching out the wrists. So keep in mind, you don't want to jam the joints. Just be very gentle with your body. This is your body and you need to give it just enough love for today. Now open up, same thing, just same hand, I should say. Open that palm upwards, and then same thing, other side. Go ahead and draw the hand down, and then go ahead and pull the palm up. Now I've seen people, surprisingly, they'll bring their forearm down and then they'll do the same thing again. So just be mindful of what you're actually doing with your body. Now we'll go ahead and clasp the fingers together. Oh. We're going to keep going. Because something you'll learn from me is that I don't take myself too seriously. All right. Try not to knock that little guy down, but just very gently roll and then switch directions. Now, again, be super, super careful with your body. Very gentle. And now one of my other favorites, we'll start in opposite directions. So turn the thumbs back and then try to press your hands together, and then same thing forward. Keep your hands pressing towards one another. Very, very, very gentle with your wrists. And just notice if you have any pain, and just take note of that. Because maybe it's something you might want to get checked. And now finally, very, very gently, we're going to hold the forearm upright, and we're just going to twist the hand itself in opposing directions. Feels so good. Same thing again, other side. Be very, very careful. These are emotes. My husband taught them to me from his martial arts. Okay, now let's come in to stretch the neck. Open up the hands and then drop the right ear. I'm going to be opposite to you. The right ear to the right shoulder. Then go ahead, take your right hand and just peel open the chest. And then we'll switch. Left ear to the left shoulder. Be very gentle. Go ahead and take that left hand. When you're ready. Stretch open the neck. You may want to stretch open the chest. You. All right, now gently come on out. Obviously now my body's just taking me in for some retraction and protraction of the scapula. Okay, now we're going to get started. So to begin, we're actually going to start on the floor, face down, prone in crocodile pose. So this would be where if you feel like you did have some, ankle pain, or your ankles were going to get a little sore on the ground, you might want to just take a blanket and open it wide so that the notches of your ankles aren't super crushed by the floor, because we are going to find an external rotation of the feet. So I'm just going to adjust accordingly here. But there it is. So we'll open the feet wide. And externally rotate the thighs. So what I don't want to see is a neutral thigh and then you just crank your knee joint out to the side. Please don't do that. Open the thigh out to the side. Externally rotate from the femur bone, or the root of the thigh bone, the femur bone, in the pelvis. And once you have that, go ahead and come down. And we're just going to rest here for a few breaths. Now I'll invite you, optional of course, but you can set a goal for your class today, something you would like to accomplish or focus on. And wherever you are, I'll just invite you to come to the breath and really let the exhalation pour out like a glass of water. Let your face soften, your tongue, your eyes all soften. We'll take 3 more breaths right here. And then I'll invite you to start wiggling the hips and the fingers, and then roll yourself up into a Sphinx pose, actually. And if you'd like, you can keep your feet here in this external rotation, or you could bring them to neutral. It's up to you. I'm actually going to deepen my external rotation slightly because my body is craving right now. And I'll invite you to bring your elbows underneath the shoulders and try to make your hands parallel with ultimately your forearms. You want your forearms to be parallel. So from here, we're actually going to roll the shoulder blades down the back and pull the chest open. Now keep in mind that I am a hypermobile person, so I am working on packing muscle around my joints. So don't think that you have to do what I'm doing. At any time, please just come out of the pose if you feel like it's creating pain. Don't go there ever. Take it easy, come out, and find a modification that works for you. Don't be shy to modify is really my #1 motto, aside from just enough love for today, which, loving yourself is modifying. So wherever you are, go ahead and pull those scapula down the back and draw them slightly together. Let the chest open, and you'll notice as you do this, the thick spinal erectors, the thick muscles lining the spine, are going to start to engage. And here, because my legs are in an external rotation, it gives me some leverage to use the glutes a little bit more. This is active. So I'm not passive, I'm not schlumping. This is an active back bend. At the same time, I begin to pull the pit of the belly button, the abdomen, towards the spine to brace the core, not just from the back, but from the front as well. You may want to come back to that goal you had set. Just let it come through a silent exhale, meaning the words are silent, not the exhale. And then from here, what I'll invite you to do is start to walk your feet a little bit more neutrally. And if you want, you could even play with lifting the feet off the ground and keeping that chest nice and open. So this is a little bit of like a modification from a Superman and a Sphinx. And now you're welcome to keep that. And here we'll come into that full Superman. So I'm going to open my arms out to a T shape. You might want to explore a Y shape. This is even more challenging. Or you might want to come down and just bring your hands underneath the elbows. Pull the shoulder blades together wherever you are. We'll hold this for 5 more breaths. And now go ahead, wherever you are, put your hands under your elbows. I'm just going to pull my little blanket away from my toes so I can get some grip. And I'm going to push myself into a full upward facing dog. You may want to stay in a little bit of a cobra pose with your belly down. And here I'm opening my chest, scooping the shoulder blades down the back, bracing the core from every angle. And then from here, I'm just going to shoot my hips back to a down dog. Now, remember as well, if you prefer, you could find a child's pose instead of a down dog, or you could find a dolphin pose instead of a downward dog. So just to familiarize you with what that is, a child's pose is the knees down and the hands come forward or back. And a dolphin pose would have a parallel arm with the sitting bones up, like a downward dog, but you're on your elbows instead of your wrists. Now I'm going to find my down dog. And I'm going to walk my dog here because I want to walk my doggy. I did legs. Actually, I did a full body workout yesterday. So my hamstrings are a little stiff. Now I'll invite you to go ahead and take 3 more breaths here. And then wherever you are, we're going to float the knees about 1 inch off the ground. We'll hold this for 2 breaths. And then we're going to make our way onto our back. So to do that, I'm going to step forward and come down. And to prepare myself as well, I'm going to get hold of my strap and I'm going to grab my little block. I'll keep the other one right here for later. Get my sequence ready. So now I'm going to take my block and I'm going to put it under the sacrum bone. So if you're not familiar with the sacrum, it's this triangular bone literally at the base of the spine inside the pelvic structure. Okay, so I do not, and I know I can't really see you, but I don't want to see someone with the block on their back. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Put it on your underwear line. So the top of the block should be like the top of your undie line a little bit, like dimples, where your dimples might be. Okay. And then go ahead and come on down. Now keep in mind, if you don't have a block, just don't use one. You don't need a block for this. This is just to add a little bit more stretch on the hip flexor side if that is of interest to you. But maybe your spine doesn't want that today. Maybe your body doesn't want it at all. You don't have to. Remember, don't be shy to modify. So here where I am, however, with my stability, my hips nice and secure on my block, I'm going to internally rotate my thigh bones, and I'm going to bring my big toe pads together with my feet flexed. So you see that? It's as if I was standing up with like a big dump forward almost in my spine. Then I'm going to scoop my shoulder blades together gently. So I'm not doing like a heavy back bend or anything right now, but I'm just allowing my spine to find that back bend, and here for my thigh bones to start being heavy and floating towards the ground. So we'll go ahead and take 2-3 more breaths here. You may want to come back to that goal you had set. Whatever works for you. And then now we're going to take this to the next level. So you may want to come out all together. That's enough for me. I'm good. Just take the block out. I'm going to do the variation here where I do stay. Actually, I don't need my strap just yet. I got excited. So variation number 1 actually would be to just keep the leg bent. I actually wouldn't recommend this if you're still on the block, but here it is. Let's just say this would be variation number 1, actually. Straighten that right leg long and then bend the left knee and soften it towards the chest. So this is going to begin to open the right hip flexor. And because we are in a little bit of a back bend, we're getting just a bit deeper of a stretch than we would, let's say, if we didn't have the block at all. One more breath. And let's switch. Being very gentle, very careful. And same thing. Go ahead and keep that foot flexed, the foot of the straight leg. It will really help you to let the thigh bone stay heavy. Like if I just kind of like soften my leg, then I'm really not allowing the thigh to press down. So you want to actually flex the quadricep and make the thigh bone feel heavy at the same time as flexing the foot, and press the whole leg to the floor. And this will help you really open up through the front of the abdomen and the hip flexor area. Also, you see I'm not jamming my knee towards my chest. The more I do that, my leg's just going to lift. So you do want to scissor the legs, but in a healthy way. Something that's going to actually accomplish the purpose, which is here to let this thigh be heavy and long and to stretch open the hip flexor. Now let's gently release. Now I'm going to take my block out, and I do recommend you do the same because we're going to get a little bit more intense here with a very similar stretch. So you may want to use your strap for this, you may not. Go ahead and just start with a straight leg long, right leg long, and then just really soften that knee towards the armpit here. Just find how that feels different. And now I'm going to encourage you to start lengthening this left leg to the sky. And now you're going to want your strap around the foot. And now the goal of this particular exercise is not to have a straight leg. That's not the goal. The goal is actually to really stretch out through the hamstring of the lifted leg and keep that bottom leg really straight and long. We want to have a neutral spine here as well. And the goal really is to scissor the thighs, to make a little adjustment, scissor the thighs without compromising the neutral spine. So we really want to get a deep stretch in the hamstring ultimately. So go ahead and find that gentle bend in the knee. As you can see, I've let go of my strap. I don't really need it. As you pull down with your hand on the strap or your hand on your toe, at the same time, press your heel to the sky, and this will deepen the stretch in your hamstring. At the same time, brace both parts of the core, right and left, so that you're stable as much as possible from both sides of the body. Keep that right thigh bone down to the ground with that straight leg. Do not pop up with the hip. Take one more breath. And now you can gently release that. Now I'm going to hold my strap here for this one. We're going to keep the right thigh heavy on the ground. I'm going to pull my strap such that I have some wiggle room here. And then I'm going to drop my elbow to the floor. And from there, I'm going to open my left leg out to the side. Again, finding that scissor action of the toes pulling up and overhead at the same time as this straight leg thrusting down towards my mirror. So I'm not just like crashing out to the side. I'm also at the same time, I'm pulling my toes up and over. So be very gentle and just find that sweet spot for yourself. Listen to your body and what works for you. And as always, don't be shy to modify. One more breath. We'll come back to center. Now, keeping your hand on your strap, we'll switch sides. Actually, you may want to switch hands. I like to bring my left thumb here into my hip crease so I can lengthen my hip towards the mirror so that both sides of my torso are even. That means I'm not hiking up with my hip. I'm even through both sides. Right and left side of the torso is equally long. And from there, I'm going to tilt my leg across my body. And remember that triangular bone, the sacrum. We're going to keep that bone firm on the ground. So I'm not popping up. That's very common. So there will be times where we will do a twist on the floor, but we're not twisting right now. We are keeping the sacrum down, and quite honestly, we're just tilting the leg across the body to really target the glutes. These little external rotators of the hip. Primarily, really, there's like the piriformis and some other ones in there, which are responsible for abduction and external rotation. So again, just find that sweet spot for yourself. You may want to explore a knee that is more bent versus more straight. Take one more breath, and then we'll come back to center. And we'll switch sides with our foot. So now we'll have that left leg long and the right heel up to the sky. So as mentioned, we do not want to straighten out the leg. The goal is not to hyperextend the knee, but we want to have a gentle micro bend in the knee. It can be more or less noticeable according to your own body. But the goal is to lift the heel to the sky, keeping this gentle bend in the knee at the same time as lengthening the toes up and over our head. And this will create that scissoring effect with the thighs, which will allow us to get a really deep hamstring stretch on that lifted leg. So don't be shy to let your face soften, your eyes soften, forehead softens. Tongue softens. Take 2 more breaths. And then you go ahead and open that foot out to the side. I'm gonna open my door there. Now, depending on your needs, you may be able to toe lock like I have, or you may want to hold your strap and just let that elbow come to the ground. Whatever you do, keep the thigh bone of that straight leg on the ground. Keep that thigh bone down. Do not pop up with the hip. If you have lifted up with the hip, you've gone too far on this. We'll take 2 more breaths. Go ahead, come back to center. And then again, I like to take my thumb and lock it into the hip so I can even out both sides of the torso as I tilt that top leg across the body, keeping the sacrum bone firmly planted. Ooh. One more breath. And back to center. And now go ahead, give yourself a little hug with both knees. Again, you can choose, you might want to have the knees closer together for more of an internal rotation, or you may want the knees wider. Now we're going to drive this home now that we have stretched out there nicely. So we're going to take this to the next level, and I'm going to challenge you. We're going to pick the shoulders up off the ground, and we're going to pick the heel up off the ground. Okay, you can kind of keep this leg here bent if you need. And then we're going to switch. May help to squeeze this bottom glute. Same thing, 3 breaths. And last time. And now we're going to bring both feet back down. I'll challenge you here to bring those elbows to the floor. They can be close to the sides or a little wider. It's up to you. Heels under the knees approximately. Scoop the shoulder blades together. And then we're going to press the hips up for a nice back bend here. Try not to let the knees splay out. In fact, I'll encourage you to have a little internal rotation of the thighs. And go ahead and come down. Okay, now, we're going to very gently roll up. Oh, sorry. Sometimes I forget I'm on film. I just do funny things. Okay. Yeah, so let's make our way to a down dog. So if you are or are not familiar with a down dog, again, you might want to practice that bent knee principle, because the goal for down dog is not to get the heels to the ground. That is not helping. You see how like it can make my spine dump, but the moment I lift my heels, I can scoop my sitting bones to the sky, and then I can have a much more neutral spine. So the goal of a down dog is actually to find a neutral spine. Hence why we just did all of that hamstring opening. Because as you turn the sitting bones up, it really does stretch out. So from there, you can imagine the heels lengthening down and stretch the sitting bones to the sky. That will help you get a deep stretch in the hamstrings, which will ultimately help you reach your goals. Also, mind you, my elbows are pointing relatively backwards towards my feet. They're not out to the side. My arms here are actually in an external rotation. So to help you achieve that, you might want to turn your index fingers just slightly out towards the corner of your mat. Please don't do it exaggerated, because I don't want you to jam your joints. But again, similarly to what we looked at in the femur bone, we're trying to actually find that rotation in the root of the humerus bone, which is the upper arm bone. So it's from the upper arm bone that we're externally rotating, not from the elbow. Now there's our little lesson on down dog. Down doggy 101. And now again, from here, we're going to just float our knees 1-2 inches off the ground. We're going to hold that for 3 breaths. Press all of your fingers into the ground so that you're not dumping in your wrists. And stack your elbows over top of your wrists, your elbows underneath your shoulders, and bring the turtle up and out of the shell. 2 more breaths. And go ahead. Bring those knees down. Now you may want to roll your mat, or you might want to grab your little blankie. For your knees, we're going to start actually with that left foot forward. I know at the beginning of the lesson I was like, oh, I'll do opposite body parts. Left hand. But I've abandoned that. So this is my left leg. I'm not sure where it'll turn out on film. That's fine. So blocks are optional. If you don't have blocks, don't worry about it. For now, I just want you to see how my knee is underneath my hip, and then there's a wide angle on the front of my foot. That's what we want to start, because we are going to start to really stretch out through, in my case here, it's the right hip flexor. So I walk that foot, that left foot, slightly forward, just enough so that when I stretch out through this back leg, my knee stays on top of the ankle thereabout. So just be really mindful. Please, people, don't do this. I don't want you to hurt your knees, okay? So keep that knee stacked over the ankle. That's what we want. Also, try not to dump in the joints, but pull all the joints up and in. Use a strong musculature to stabilize through this position. Now you can use your hands here on the blocks if you want, or you can go ahead and lift up. Okay, now we're going to release that. We are going to walk these feet now 90 degrees and 90 degrees. And we're going to put our block, actually we're going to take both blocks on the side of the bent leg in the front. And now I hope you can see me in the mirror. I'm going to bring my blocks approximately shoulder width. And now from here, I'm actually going to lengthen all the way up, and I'm going to rotate to the side. So now I'm stretching out the entire side of my belly. And you can play with like a little bit of a back bend versus a little bit of forward flexion, because you're going to get more of either the obliques, the abdomen, or the QL, as well as the hip flexors, depending on where you sort of find that tension. But the goal really is find that sweet spot for yourself. And stretch out the belly. All right. Now we're going to let that go. Come back into your bulldog pose. We'll hold this for 3 to 5 breaths. Remember, be that turtle coming up and out of the shell, so don't sink in your joints, don't collapse in the shoulders. Keep pressing your fingers down so you're not dumping in the wrists. And then we'll switch sides. Go ahead, put that knee down. If you want, you can bring your stack right over here, or you can place your blocks right at the front like before. It's up to you if you know you're going to need them. So again, we're going to walk this foot a little bit forward so that when we stretch the hips forward, the knee stays stacked over the ankle. And from there, we're going to lift up. Now we're going to come on out. Walk that foot back so you've got 90 and 90 here. Adjust your straps, or your blocks, excuse me, as needed. From there, go ahead and stretch out. Through the QL. Through the obliques. Through the Psoas. Just listen to your body here and give it what it needs. Give it what it needs. And remember, both sides, as much as we want to even things out perfectly on both sides, the body is full of imbalances. So you may need to stay a little longer on one side than the other. Just listen to your body. Try to even things out as much as you can. Go ahead, release when you're ready. I set our blocks aside. Shut my door. And we'll find that bulldog pose once again. Okay. So go ahead, stack those hands under the elbows, under the shoulders. External rotation beginning at the humerus bone. Pull the pit of the abdomen up towards the spine. Even here, aim to open the chest. It may help if you're collapsing. Pull the rib cage up and back. 2 more breaths. And then we'll shoot the hips back. Our downward facing dog. All right. So I'm not kidding. If you've got to go to work or you're short for time, that is section number 1 of the series. So don't be shy. You can go ahead, turn off the video here and be on with your day. God bless you. If you've got some extra time and you've budgeted for this whole video, we're going to take it to the next phase. All right. So now we're going to come down on our knees. We are just going to take a very short little intermission here to practice a neutral spine in a bird dog pose. So I'm just going to stay here and hang out as I explain this, because my body needs more. So you'll notice that my hip is not lifted. Whoa, you see how I just totally came out of balance? Square both of these hips equally to the floor. Pull the spine up. Stabilize here through that same nice externally rotated humerus bone. And then you can play with lifting your right hand off the ground and lengthening it towards, in this case, towards the mirrors. And then we'll switch. So on your end, you may want to, like I said, just play with lifting that hand up off the floor. You may not even want to have that hand lifted off the floor. You'll notice, as before, both my hips are square. It's like I could balance a glass of water on my sacrum. My spine is strong and stable. And that back heel is lengthening back. And I'm not lifted, I'm not hiked. We're not necessarily working on the glutes right now. We're working on a stable, neutral spine, which if you have a sitting job, like you're at a desk all day, I swear you need to, I would recommend you do this literally every day. All right, now let's tuck those toes. Come back to a down dog. I'm going to set my blanket aside because we're going to get into a little bit more of a standing series, and it's going to be a little bit more like a flow. Okay, so we're going to start with one of my favies. And now you can do this on your knees as well. Okay, so don't feel like you have to follow me. But I like to roll my spine and come into a full up dog. And then come into a nice down dog. So that's variation number one. Well, I guess that would be variation number two. Variation number one would be coming into a little bit of a child's pose, rolling forward, and then coming into a cobra or a Superman or a W-shaped arm. And then again, rolling back, rolling forward. So this is your first variation. My variation is going to be, so we'll do this about 5 times total. So make it yours. Now, this is my second time. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but I am in love with Jesus. I just like to mention that because yoga can be a spiritual practice for a lot of people. And I like to make it really clear that Jesus is my God. Jesus is my God. He's my one and only. Aside from my husband. Now we're going to do 2 more flows here like this. For hour 5. Oh, I love these. Really peel open that chest. And draw the shoulder blades together. Last one. All right, now go ahead, take your right foot forward. I'm going to open up here to a warrior 2 to start. So peel open to the front. Again, you want that knee over top of the ankle thereabouts. Just going to open up. I'm going to come into a palm up variation. And then we're going to open to a warrior 3. And wheelbarrow forward. Come to our little down dog. If you want, you can chaturanga. That's up to you. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to switch sides over here so that it's just a little easier for you guys. But again, we're going to come into our warrior 2. Again, notice that knee over top of the ankle, not collapsing forward, but stay wide. And this back leg is on a little internal rotation. The feet are on about a 45-degree angle. Also, I'm not reaching forward, but my shoulders are stacked over the hips. And then from there, I'll bring that back hand down. And we'll wheelbarrow forward. If you want, you can chaturanga, you don't have to. We can meet in either a down dog or child's pose. And that right foot will come forward. And here, this back heel is going to stay up. And we're going to open to a crescent lunge. And then from here, we're actually going to take our opposite elbow to the knee. I'm going to walk in just a little bit, and we're going to twist. Now mind my mic. And again, pull the pit of the belly towards the spine. So you might want to do a variation with your wrist to the knee. This is a good variation. You might want to come to the forearm, elbow. Remember, I'm hypermobile, so please modify. Release. You can chaturanga if you want. If you do chaturanga, make sure your elbows stay over your wrists. That will save your elbows. Similarly to having the knee over the ankle. And now the left foot can come forward. Right heel stays up. Coming in for our crescent lunge. We stretch open. Hip flexor. And wrist to the knee for a twist. Forearm or elbow. It's up to you. It's up to you. So good. I'm stretching out here for my glute especially. Come on out. If you want, you could do the variation where you just bulldog to down dog. That's up to you. If you want a chaturanga, you're welcome to. You could do 5 chaturangas if you want. Because this is all about you and it's your practice. So you can do whatever you need. I'm just up here offering suggestions. All right, now we're going to take a big step forward. We are going to start preparing for our next section, which I can't wait for. Can't wait for the next section. So for now, because we're not quite there yet, we're going to turn the toes out to an external rotation of, again, the femur bone, right? So I'm not just turning the toes out and then my knees are collapsing in. Please, save your knees. Externally rotate the thighs. Open up here through the front of the pelvis. Try not to jam forward, but stay upright through the chest. And aim to have a neutral spine. So you're not posteriorly tilting, nor are you anteriorly tilting the pelvis, but try to get the pubic bone and the coccyx or the tailbone relatively on the same plane. Okay. Now we're going to come down. Keep fighting for that external rotation. If you want, you can have lifted arms, or you could lift overhead. Totally up to you. We'll stay here for 3 more breaths. Go as deep as you need. And we're going to come up, turn the toes in, hands to the hips, and go ahead, lengthen the chest forward. Keep your shoulders rolled up and back. Now, again, I'm quite flexible, so it's probably unrealistic for you, but if you can get here, congrats, although it's not a competition, because our bodies are unique. So if you're up here, what I want to see is a very gentle bend in the knees and a neutral spine. If this is where you need to stay in order to get that neutral spine, stay here. Find that tight, nice stretch in your hamstrings. Keep lifting your sitting bones. And when the pelvis starts to loosen up, then you reach forward. It's not about trying to reach down. Do you understand? Find that neutral pelvis as aligned with the spine. And as the hamstrings get more flexible, then you can tilt. It's not about reaching. So let's come up. Now that I've given that little explanation, we're going to widen the feet out here again. And again, find that sumo squat. Go as low as is comfortable for you. We're going to stay for 5 breaths. Neutralize the pelvis so that the pubic bone and the coccyx are on the same level. Feels good. Turn the toes in. Tilt forward. Gently bend the knees. Only go down as far as is comfortable, such that you can maintain as neutral a spine as possible. So I am taking advantage of a toe lock here, and I'm aiming to pull my belly through the thighs, and I'm lengthening my heels down as I lift my sitting bones up, and I'm pulling my shoulder blades. I'm depressing them, essentially. I'm pulling them towards my pelvis. Okay, now we're going to come up again. Use the strength of a long, stable spine to come all the way up. We're going to do this one last time. Feels so good. Feels so good. And turn those toes in. This time the variation I'm going to do with my arms is I'm going to clasp my hands behind my back. And remember, you don't have to look like me. I'm going to say it a million more times throughout my lifetime. You might be right here. That's okay. I once had a yoga teacher who loved how flexible I was, and he used to make my hands touch the ground from this position. He would give me an assist. I can't believe that. Since then, I've actually gained a lot of strength in my shoulders, and I've lost flexibility, which I'm happy about because I was way too mobile in my shoulders to the point where I dislocated my left shoulder twice. Now, we're going to come up to neutral and hold this position here, neutral. You may want to bring your hands to your hips. Again, just scoop your shoulder blades down the back. And now I'm going to tilt my chest towards my foot. You may want to open up a little bit. It's up to you. I kind of like having this internal rotation here. You might, like I said, you might not. I can bring my hand down to my foot. You might want to bring your hand to your thigh and just open it. And that way it's more like a reverse triangle pose, okay? But for me here, I'm just going to keep position. There is something called flossing the joints, which is when you rotate the joint to its near extreme in the ball and socket so that you can maintain as much mobility as possible. Now I'll come back to neutral. Like I said, you might want to open up to more of a half triangle pose here, or I should say reverse triangle pose. Hand on either the knee, the thigh, shin bone, as you wish. I'm going to be very careful. Now what I'm doing, just so you know, from this perspective, I'm engaging in all the external rotators of my glute on the left side so that I'm actually stretching them, all those little guys, deep inside the glute by pressing down into the mat and away. That's how I'm getting all of those fired up. And I'm not focusing so much here on my hamstrings, because for me, this is primarily a glute stretch. And now, gently release, come back to neutral. Pull those hands up to the hips. Finish off. Lengthen back up. Open. Go ahead, clasp those hands behind the back if you want. I'm just going to get a little chest stretch here. Neck. And switch sides. And now we are going to finish our practice with a frog and a forward, or a prone, excuse me, a prone hip flexor stretch. Okay, so I'm going to use this for my elbows this time. And because I know, maybe we could use that under the chest. I'm not going to need the strap anymore. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is fold your mat. And you may want to just give your legs a shot at this before you start like throwing your mat around. Maybe for me it's going to be more like that. I don't know. But this is our froggy. Yeah, okay, so I can, I think, do a little double fold. So you protect your knees and your ankles. Oh, baby. So good. Okay. Then you use your little blanket. Support your elbows. There. Now I have a bit more wiggle room. So now once you're in this position, I'll encourage you to bring your knees and your hips into a 90 degree with your ankle as much as possible. You can come forward, you can come back, but just for right now, for the fun of it, we're going to find a 90 degree. Also, if you feel like you're dumping in your rib cage, pull your ribs up, because this is also a plank. We're practicing a plank position with our core. And our forearms here are very similar to what we did at the beginning of class. Big surprise. So we want that elbow stacked underneath the shoulder. Now my hips are finally starting to release. And my forearms are parallel. Again, do not let your shoulders sag in the joints. Be that turtle coming up and out of the shell. Let your face be soft. Tongue soft, eyes soft, jaws soft. I'm going to come out and just adjust the camera so you can see where I'm going a little bit better. Oh, so now, this is going to be so good. So now we're going to crawl forward and keep our legs in that external rotation. We're going to open up the feet. Oh. Oh. Does this look familiar? Like the beginning of class? Stay right here. Okay, we'll take 2 more breaths. And then keep your legs right where they are. Okay? Yeah, I want the floor. So I'm going to bring my hands into a position as if I was going to push up, like in a cobra. Do an upward dog. I'm going to keep my legs where they are. And I'm going to push myself up. And then I'm going to roll over so that the left leg gets this glorious hip flexor stretch. You may even want to look over your shoulder, and that will help stretch out your belly even more. Now be very careful with your spine here. Just listen to your own body. And then gently unwind and switch sides. Ça fait du bien. Oh, glorieux. Oh, now gently come on out. Crawl your way back to center. Now, okay, so to finish off, we're going to come into a reclined twist. So I'll have you come down onto your back. And actually, you may want your blocks, and I'll show you why if you have less mobility. So once you come down onto your back, we have some options. So the first one would be to straighten your leg and then roll to the side. Now, you might want to use your block or blocks to support your knee, okay? Second option, bend your knees and let both your legs come down. You may want to use one block on the bottom, one block in the middle. Or maybe You don't need a block, in which case, just come down to the side. Let your chest open and aim to get that other hand, or that other shoulder, I should say, to rest on the ground. It doesn't have to be rested there. Now just let it all go. Soften your face, soften your tongue. And back to that goal you had set. And congratulate yourself for being one step closer. As we grow stronger one day at a time. Come on back. Realign the spine, and then whatever variation you just did, go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. All right, let's come back. Now we're going to finish with a forward fold. So go ahead, lift your knees and bring your forehead to your knees, round your back. An option, no, you can stay there, or you can make your way up. And we're going to come to a forward fold. So now, actually, I want you to be able to see my body. So I'm going to put this here. I'll encourage you to do the bent knee variation to start. And just lift up your chest and place it on the thighs, and then relax your head between the knees. Now, wherever you are, pull the chin towards the throat to open the back of the neck and spiral the forehead down through the heart. This will help open up between the scapula in the thoracic spine. Hopefully my door isn't too fussy anymore. And from there, if you feel like you have more give in your legs, you're welcome to begin scooching them forward and straightening them gently. Just if you do straighten them, come for an internal rotation and try not to dump in the back. So if you're dumping in the back, you know that you need either a support under the pelvis or you need to bend your knees. Okay, but the goal here is not just to have a nice long hamstring or hamstrings, but to have a beautiful, healthy flexion of the spine. Two more breaths. And then we'll gently roll up. Now for you guys, I'll encourage you to come all the way down, put a sweater on, put on some socks, put a blanket around your feet, a blanket on your body, and you can go ahead and put a blanket under the head. Maybe one day I'll show you how to do a real head support. And just come down and let the body be totally neutral and totally still. Now, as you do that and as you get ready, I'm going to prepare myself to sing to you, as I do in every class ever. Ugh. Let the eyes soften, let the tongue soften, let the face soften, let the lips soften, let the jaw come unhinged. And let the exhale flow. And I'll just thank you, Jesus, for this practice. Pray, Lord, for every person here. Fill them with your blood. Heal us in your glorious name. החיים ונמסתם מרקנאינו. Lord, I pray you would cleanse us in your glory. And go ahead and deepen the breath. And wiggle the fingers, the toes. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old life has gone and new life. You might want to very gently bend one knee at a time and roll to the side. Go ahead and use your arms to help roll yourself up to sitting. And with that, my friends, I wish you a beautiful day. God bless you. Don't be shy to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. I'm here to serve. See you next time.